Let me ask you something. Who decided this year was over? Who told you that because a few months didn't go your way, the whole story is finished? Because I want you to hear this clearly. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're thinking, as long as you can make a decision, you are still in the game. This year hasn't beaten you. Your focus just drifted, and focus can be reclaimed in a moment. Today isn't about motivation. It's about taking your power back, controlling your mind, and finishing with strength, clarity, and pride. Starting right now, let me slow this down for a moment, because this is where most people quietly sabotage themselves without even realizing it. Somewhere along the way, maybe a few months back, maybe after a setback you didn't see coming, you started telling a story, not out loud, not to anyone else, but inside your own head. A story that sounds like this: this year didn't go how I planned. I missed my chance. I'm behind. I messed it up. And once that story takes root, everything you see starts to confirm it. Every delay becomes proof. Every mistake becomes evidence. Every comparison tightens the knot. But here's the truth you need to hear, and I want you to hear it in your body, not just your ears. The year is not judging you. Time doesn't have an opinion about you. A calendar doesn't decide your worth. You do. And the moment you label the year as a failure, you don't just describe the past, you command the future, because the brain is a goal-achieving machine. Whatever meaning you assign, it will work tirelessly to make that meaning real. Think about it. If you decide this year is already lost, what happens next? Your energy drops, your standards soften, you hesitate, you stop pushing, not because you can't, but because you've told yourself it wouldn't matter anyway. That label becomes a permission slip to disengage. And most people don't quit dramatically. They quit subtly. They lower expectations. They delay decisions. They coast emotionally while telling themselves they'll start fresh next year, but next year doesn't. Fix what you refuse to face now. Here's what most people don't understand. Life doesn't reward effort evenly across time. One decision made with absolute clarity and conviction can outweigh months of confusion. 1 week of focused action can rewrite a year of drift. Momentum doesn't care how late it starts. It only cares that it starts strong. History isn't shaped by long stretches of comfort. It's shaped by moments of decision. So let me ask you something, and don't answer me intellectually. Answer emotionally. Who told you the year had to be perfect to be powerful? Who convinced you that progress only counts if it happens on schedule? The truth is, most breakthroughs don't arrive on time. They arrive when pressure meets decision. They arrive when someone finally says, enough, this stops now. You see, failure is not what happened. Failure is the meaning you attach to what happened. Two people can experience the exact same setback. One uses it as a reason to retreat. The other uses it as a reason to rise. Same event, different identity, and identity always wins. Right now, some of you are carrying months of emotional weight that doesn't even belong to you anymore. You're dragging old mistakes into new moments. You're rehearsing conversations that already ended. You're reliving decisions that can't be undone while ignoring the only thing that actually matters, what you decide next. The past has no power except the power you give it through focus. And here's the shift. This is where everything changes. Stop asking, did I win this year? Start asking, who did I become and who am I choosing to become now? Because time doesn't define you. Standards do. Identity does. The strongest people on earth are not the ones who never fall behind. They're the ones who refuse to stay there mentally. You haven't lost the year unless you decide the story's over. And the story's not over as long as you're still breathing, still choosing, still capable of making a decision that aligns your actions with your values. This isn't about pretending everything went well. It's about refusing to let disappointment turn into self-definition. Let me be clear. Accountability is powerful, but self-condemnation is poison. Learn from what didn't work. Absolutely. Extract the lesson. Own your part. Then close the file. Do not live there. You don't build a future by staring at the wreckage of the past. You build it by deciding what that experience will mean going forward. And this is where mental strength really begins. Not with hype, not with motivation, but with choice. Choice of meaning, choice of focus, choice of what you allow to dominate your inner world. Because once you release the label of failure, something incredible happens. Energy returns, creativity wakes up, possibility expands, suddenly the same remaining. Days you once dismissed feel loaded with potential. You stop asking for permission to finish strong. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. You stop negotiating with doubt. You act from a place of authority instead of apology. And that shift alone changes how you walk, how you speak, how you decide, how you show up in every area of your life. So don't tell me what month it is. Don't tell me how much time is left. Tell me what you're deciding right now. Because the year doesn't end when the calendar flips. It ends the moment you mentally check out. And as long as you're still in the game, as long as you're still choosing growth over guilt, this year is not lost. It's waiting for you to take it back. Let's talk about something most people completely misunderstand, even though it's shaping every result they're getting right now. It's not their talent. It's not their resources. It's not even their work ethic. It's the emotional state they're living in day after day. Because the truth is, you will never consistently outperform the emotional state you're operating from. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how on some days you can solve problems effortlessly, take action without overthinking, speak with confidence, and move forward, even when things aren't perfect? And then on other days, with the same skills, the same goals, the same opportunities, everything feels heavy. Simple tasks feel exhausting. Decisions get delayed. Doubt gets louder. Nothing changed on the outside. What changed was your state. Most people think success is about motivation. It's not. Motivation comes and goes. Emotional mastery is what lasts. If you don't learn how to control your emotional state, your emotions will control your actions. And if your actions are inconsistent, your results will be too. Here's what happens near the end of the year for a lot of people. Energy drops. Frustration builds. They start replaying what didn't work. And without realizing it, they slip into a state of disappointment, guilt, or pressure. From that state, everything feels harder. Goals feel heavier, and they mistake that feeling for reality. But feelings are not facts. They're signals, and you get to decide how to respond to them. Mental strength doesn't mean you never feel discouraged. It means you don't live there. It means you know how to change your state on command, because your brain takes orders from your body first, your focus second, and your language always. Change any one of those, and you change how you feel. Change how you feel, and you change what you do. Most people wait for their emotions to improve before they act. Strong people act in a way that forces their emotions to improve. They move their body differently. They breathe with intention. They shift their posture. They speak to themselves with certainty instead of sympathy. And suddenly energy starts to return, not because life changed, but because leadership showed up internally. Ask yourself this honestly. When you're tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed, what do you focus on? What questions are you asking yourself? Because questions shape emotions. If you ask, why does this always happen to me? Your brain will find reasons to feel powerless. But if you ask, what can I control right now? Your nervous system shifts. You move from reaction into direction. This is where most people lose the year, not because of lack of time, but because they let their emotional state slowly erode their standards. They stop expecting excellence from themselves. They start tolerating things they wouldn't tolerate at their best. And the danger isn't one bad day. It's living in a weakened state long in. But it starts to feel normal. But here's the breakthrough. Your emotional state is not permanent. It's practiced. You've practiced stress. You've practiced hesitation. You've practiced self-doubt. And if something can be practiced, it can be retrained. Emotional strength is a skill, not a personality trait. You don't finish the year strong by forcing massive action while feeling drained. You finish strong by learning how to generate energy when you need it, by choosing focus over frustration, by deciding that no matter what happened earlier, you will not let your emotions sabotage the future you still have access to. Think about the times in your life when you performed at your best. You weren't waiting for certainty. You weren't waiting for permission. You were in a powerful state, focused, driven, committed. That state didn't come from perfect conditions. It came from decision, and you can access it again starting now. The strongest people are not the most positive. They are the most intentional. They don't deny reality, but they refuse to let reality dictate their emotional home. They visit disappointment, but they don't move in. They feel fear, but they don't follow it. They use emotion as fuel, not as a verdict. And this matters now more than ever, because how you finish mentally will determine how you start next season. If you end the year drained, blaming, and disconnected from your power, you carry that momentum forward. But if you end the year disciplined in your state, clear in your focus, and strong in your standards, you walk into what's next with authority. So stop asking whether you feel like finishing strong. Ask whether you're willing to lead yourself emotionally. Because the moment you take control of your state, you take control of your actions. And when your actions change, everything else follows. And the year starts turning around the moment you decide your emotions work for you, not against you. Now let's go deeper, because this is where most battles are actually won or lost. And almost no one realizes it. It's not what happens to you that drains you. It's the conversation you keep having with yourself about what happened. That voice in your head, it never stops talking. And whether you finish this year strong or crawl to the finish line mentally exhausted depends on whether you learn to lead that voice or let it run wild. Most people think they're tired because they've done too much. That's not true. They're tired because they've been arguing with themselves all year long. replaying mistakes, second-guessing decisions, mentally explaining why things didn't work, carrying guilt into moments that require courage. That inner dialogue becomes background noise, and over time it drains focus, confidence, and momentum. Here's the truth most people avoid. You will never outperform the story you tell yourself consistently. If your internal conversation is full of doubt, pressure, and self-criticism, your actions will always reflect hesitation, even if you look busy on the outside. You can't build a powerful future while constantly negotiating with a weak narrative. Pay attention to the questions you've been asking yourself lately, because questions are commands to the brain. Ask disempowering questions, and your brain will deliver disempowering answers every time. Why am I always behind? Why do I mess things up? What if it's too late? Those questions don't create clarity. They create emotional paralysis. And once that becomes your mental habit, it doesn't matter how much time you have left. You'll waste it in your head before you ever touch it with your hands. Strong people don't silence their inner voice. They train it. They redirect it. They challenge it. When a thought shows up that says, why? You should be further along. They don't argue emotionally. They respond strategically. They ask better questions. What's one thing I can do today that moves the needle? What is this moment demanding from me? What would my best self do next? Those questions shift the nervous system from judgment to direction. And let me be clear, this isn't about positive thinking. This is about precision thinking. Positive thinking ignores reality. Precision thinking uses reality as raw material. It says, this happened, I accept it. Now what? No drama, no self-pity, no mental spirals, just leadership. Most people let one bad thought turn into a bad hour into a bad day into a bad month, and before they know it, the year feels heavy, not because of events, but because of unchallenged thinking. Mental strength is the ability to interrupt that chain early, to catch the thought before it becomes an identity. You have to understand this. The voice in your head is not the truth. It's a habit, and habits can be changed. That voice learned its patterns from repetition, not from wisdom. If you've repeated doubt, it learned doubt. If you've repeated criticism, it learned criticism. But the same brain that learned those patterns can learn new ones. If you stop treating every thought like a fact, here's a powerful shift. Stop asking whether the voice in your head is loud. Ask whether it's useful, because confidence doesn't come from always feeling good. It comes from trusting that you can direct your mind under pressure, that no matter what shows up internally, you have the ability to choose your response. And this matters now, especially now. Because as the year comes to a close, the mind loves to audit everything. It starts tallying wins and losses. It starts comparing expectations to reality. And if you don't take control of that review process, it turns into a trial where you're both the defendant and the judge, and you never win. Instead, you decide the tone of the review. You decide the rules. You extract lessons without self-attack. You acknowledge growth without minimizing it. You recognize progress that doesn't show up on a scoreboard. That's not lowering standards. That's strengthening them. Because clarity beats criticism every time. When you win the inner conversation, action becomes simpler. You stop overthinking. You stop needing emotional permission. You move, and momentum starts returning, not because everything feels perfect, but because your mind is no longer working against you. This is how mentally strong people finish, not by forcing themselves to feel confident, but by refusing to entertain thoughts that weaken their standards. They don't argue with every doubt. They outgrow it through action. They don't wait for silence in their head. They move forward with discipline anyway. So hear this clearly. The remaining days don't need a better plan. They need a stronger inner leader. And the moment you decide to change the way you speak to yourself, you change the way you show up everywhere else. Win the conversation and the rest will follow. Let's bring this down to something real and usable, because this is where people either regain control or stay overwhelmed. Most people don't fail because they lack discipline. They fail because they're trying to carry the whole year on their back at once. Too many goals, too many expectations, too much pressure to fix everything before time runs out. And when the mind sees something that feels too big, it doesn't rise up, it shuts down. That's why mental strength at this stage isn't about pushing harder. It's about shrinking the game. Right now, some of you are looking at everything that didn't happen, all the goals still unfinished, all the promises you made yourself, and your brain is treating it like one massive mountain. When that happens, hesitation takes over. You procrastinate, you distract yourself, not because you're lazy, but because the task feels emotionally unsafe. The nervous system avoids what feels overwhelming. Strong finishers don't do that. They don't try to conquer the entire mountain in one move. They turn mountains into steps. They reduce complexity into clarity. They stop asking, how do I fix my whole life? And start asking, what's the next small, powerful action I can take today? This is where momentum is reborn. Here's a truth that changes everything. Progress loves simplicity. When the goal is clear and controllable, action becomes easier. When the goal is vague and massive, fear sneaks in disguised as logic. People tell themselves they need more time, more information, more motivation, when what they really need is a smaller target. You don't finish strong by doing everything. You finish strong by doing the right things consistently. And consistency only happens when the task feels manageable enough to start, but meaningful enough to matter. Think about it. The moments you've been most productive in your life weren't when you had endless time. They were when the mission was simple and the focus was sharp. One deadline, one outcome, one step. That's not accidental. That's how the brain is wired to win. So instead of looking at the rest of the year as one giant block of pressure, break it down, not into weeks, not into plans, into days, and then even further into actions. What is the one action today that if you followed through would restore your sense of control, not impress anyone, not fix everything, just restore control, because control builds confidence, confidence builds momentum, and momentum builds belief. Most people are waiting to feel confident before they act. But confidence is a rewa. R&D for action, not a prerequisite. When you complete small intentional actions, your identity starts to shift. You stop seeing yourself as behind and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That identity shift matters more than any big result right now. This is how mentally strong people win late. They don't overwhelm themselves with distant outcomes. They obsess over daily execution. They ask what must be done now, and they do it cleanly, fully, without drama. And here's the key. Small actions don't mean small standards. They mean precise standards. You show up fully for what's in front of you. You don't half commit. You don't rush. You don't multitask your way through it. You execute with presence. That level of focus creates pride. Pride fuels energy. Energy brings you back to life. This is especially important when time feels short because pressure makes people rush mentally, and rushing creates mistakes. Shrinking the game slows the mind while accelerating progress. You stop panicking about outcomes and start winning moments. Let me say this clearly. The year doesn't turn around because of a dramatic breakthrough. It turns around because of a series of small promises kept. Each one rebuilds trust with yourself, and self-trust is the foundation of mental strength. When you keep promises to yourself, even tiny ones, you send a powerful signal to your nervous system, I can rely on me. That signal quiets anxiety. It reduces internal resistance. And suddenly, action doesn't feel forced anymore. It feels natural. This is how you move from overwhelm to authority. You don't ask yourself to do the impossible. You ask yourself to do the essential. And then you do it again tomorrow. So if you're feeling pressure right now, that's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're thinking too big, too fast, without direction. Shrink the target, narrow the focus. Win today. Because when you win today, tomorrow stops feeling heavy. And when enough days stack up behind you, the year doesn't look lost anymore. It looks unfinished, and that means it's still yours to claim. Let's talk about pain for a moment, because whether you admit it or not, pain has been present this year. Disappointment, missed targets, moments where you showed up less than your best. And most people make one critical mistake with pain. They treat it as proof that something's wrong with them. They turn pain into a verdict instead of a resource. Pain is not your enemy. Misused pain is every emotion you felt this year: frustration, regret, anger, embarrassment. It carries energy, but energy without direction turns destructive. That's when pain becomes heaviness. That's when it turns into self-doubt, procrastination, and emotional shutdown. But when pain is given purpose, it becomes fuel. And fuel, when aimed correctly, creates intensity, focus, and change. Here's the difference between people who finish strong and people who fade out. Strong people don't ask, why did this happen to me? They ask, what is this demanding from me? They don't waste pain trying to escape it. They use it to sharpen themselves. Think about it. Pain only becomes dangerous when you interpret it as a personal failure. When you say, this hurts, so something must be wrong with me, your nervous system collapses inward. You shrink, you hesitate. But when you say, this hurts because something matters, suddenly the pain has direction. It points you toward growth. Most people numb pain. They distract themselves. They scroll. They avoid. They stay busy so they don't have to feel uncomfortable emotions. But numbness kills urgency, and urgency is what creates movement. You don't need less pain. You need to stop wasting it. Pain is feedback. It tells you where your standards are. It tells you what you value. It tells you what you're no longer willing to tolerate. But if you ignore that message, The pain doesn't go away. It just grows louder. Strong people listen early. Let me be clear about something important. Using pain as fuel does not mean living in anger or resentment. That's not strength, that's corrosion. Fuel doesn't burn wild, it's directed, disciplined, purposeful. You don't let pain spill everywhere, you aim it at action. This is especially powerful at this stage of the year because disappointment can either drain you or drive you. The difference is meaning. If you tell yourself this pain means I failed, you weaken. If you tell yourself this pain means I care and I'm not done, you rise. Look back at the moments that hurt the most this year, not to judge yourself, but to extract power. Ask yourself, what standard was violated here? What expectation did I have that wasn't met? What does this emotion want me to change? That's not dwelling, that's decoding. Most people carry pain like a weight. Strong people carry it like a weapon. And here's what I mean by that. Pain can give you clarity faster than comfort ever will. When something hurts enough, you stop negotiating, you stop justifying, you stop lying to yourself. Pain cuts through illusion. It says this cannot continue. And that moment when excuses die is where transformation begins. But only if you don't confuse pain with proof. Pain is not proof that you're incapable. Pain is proof that, your current approach needs to evolve. That's it. No drama. No self-attack, just information. And when you use pain correctly, something incredible happens. Your tolerance for nonsense drops. Your focus sharpens. Your standards rise. You stop doing things halfway. You stop waiting for motivation. You move with intensity, not desperation, but resolve. This is how mentally strong people flip the script late in the game. They don't wish the pain away. They harness it. They let it remind them of who they are, what they refuse to repeat. You don't say, I'm behind. You say, I've learned. You don't say, I failed. You say, I've been trained. You don't say, this year hurt. You say, this year woke me up. And that shift alone changes how you walk into the remaining days. You don't move timidly. You move decisively. You don't need external pressure. Your internal fire is enough. So whatever disappointed you, whatever frustrated you, whatever didn't go your way, don't bury it. Don't romanticize it either. Use it. Let it refine you. Let it strengthen your resolve. Let it remind you that you're still in this. Because when pain becomes fuel, quitting is no longer an option. This is where everything comes together. Because in the end, it's never really about goals or timelines or even results. It's about identity, who you decide you are when pressure shows up, who you choose to be when no one is watching, who you become when the year doesn't go according to plan, and you have to decide whether you drift or rise. Most people wait until January to ask that question. That's why most people repeat the same patterns year after year. Strong people decide before the year ends. They don't wait for a clean slate. They create one through decision. Here's the truth. You are always becoming someone. Every day through your habits, your standards, your reactions, your excuses, you follow through. The question isn't whether you're changing. The question is whether you're changing intentionally. Right now, this moment matters more than you think because the identity you carry into the final stretch is the identity you multiply. If you finish the year checked out, blaming, or half committed, that version of you doesn't magically disappear when the calendar flips. But if you finish the year with clarity, discipline, and self-respect, you carry that momentum forward and it compounds. Mentally strong people don't ask, what do I want next year? First, they ask, who must I become starting now? Because outcomes chase identity. They always have. So let me ask you something direct. Not comfortable, direct. What version of you has been running the show lately? The one that negotiates with comfort? The one that explains instead of executes? The one that waits until conditions feel right? Or the one that takes ownership even when it's uncomfortable? There's no neutral gear. Every choice is a vote for the person you're becoming. And here's what most people miss. Identity isn't built in dramatic moments. It's built in the small decisions you think don't matter. Do you keep your word when it's inconvenient? Do you follow through when motivation drops? Do you hold your standards when no one would blame you for lowering them? That's where identity is forged. Finishing mentally strong means deciding what you tolerate and what you no longer will. It means drawing a line and saying, this is who I am now. This is how I show up. This is the standard. Not someday, not next year, now. Because the strongest form of confidence isn't loud. It's quiet certainty. It's knowing that no matter what happens externally, you don't abandon yourself internally. Some of you have been too flexible with your own standards. You keep giving yourself reasons instead of results. You keep promising yourself you'll change soon. But soon never comes until now is taken seriously. This isn't about beating yourself up for the past. It's about deciding that the past doesn't get a vote anymore. You don't need to fix everything. You need to decide something. Decide how you show up when things get hard. Decide what your minimum standard is. Decide what kind of person finishes what they start. Identity level decisions simplify life. They remove negotiation. When you decide, I am someone who follows through, you don't debate action. You take it. When you decide, I don't quit on myself, excuses lose their power. When you decide, I finish strong, your behavior aligns. And here's the most important part. You don't prove this identity to the world. You prove it to yourself through action, through discipline, through consistency in the small things. That's how self-respect is rebuilt. And self-respect is the foundation of mental strength. So as this year comes to a close, don't ask how much time is left. Ask who you are choosing to be with the time that remains. Because the year will end either way, but the identity you build right now is the one that walks into everything that comes next. Decide who you're becoming and let that decision finish the year for you.